Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is a 2010 romantic action comedy film co-written, produced, and directed by Edgar Wright, based on the graphic novel series Scott Pilgrim by Brian Lee O'Malley. As the bass player for a garage rock band, Scott Pilgrim has never struggled to find a girlfriend. It's breaking up that's the hard part. But everything changes when the mysterious Ramona Flowers glides into his life. Winning her heart won't be easy though. Scott must first defeat her 7 evil exes, who are determined to take him down and remove him from her romantic future. Alright, so I have watched Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. A film that, of course, I've always wanted to see, but again, never really had the opportunity to until just shortly, a couple days ago. I feel like this film is known for, its just quirkiness in terms of editing and direction and filmmaking. Edgar Wright, I think this film was directed by Edgar Wright, of course, and I think he's just known for bringing his hyper stylized, energetic vision to life through all of his projects. I'm not sure if you guys have seen Shaun of the Dead or Hot Fuzz. Those are, of course, 2 examples prior to making Scott Pilgrim that are great indications of sort of his directing and filmmaking style. Very unique. In this film, though, he blends aesthetics of anime, video games, and comic books into a truly unique cinematic experience. There are very seamless transitions, of course, thanks to the amazing editing in this film. Very clever visual storytelling that maintains constant momentum throughout the film. I think the pacing for this film is really, really strong. At the end of the day, this is such a widely, of course, it's adapted from a comic book series, but it is also such a wildly original film, just full of vibrant creativity and, like I mentioned before, quirkiness. Like the humor itself is also very quirky, and that is emblematic of the late 2000s culture as well. This also balances intense action with very self-aware comic-infused comedy, making it both hilarious and visually captivating. Also, a huge standout for this film, of course, are the fight sequences. They are definitely the highlights of this film, and they never get repetitive, even though Scott does have to defeat all 7 exes. They are super stylized, super inventive, and choreographed almost like a musical number in a way. And so each battle with each ex was very uniquely designed, and it progressively became more outrageous in a way. It became like the wackiness level of this film really just increases as you progress, which I loved. It also became more memorable. The visual effects themselves are essentially straight out of a comic book and video game. They are heavily inspired by that, but they are also eye-catching and consistently engaging. My eyes were glued to the entire screen, during these, fight sequences and battles. Michael Cera, of course, he gives one of his most animated performances, I think, ever. He is incredible as Scott Pilgrim, and he perfectly captures that awkward, reluctant hero. I think towards the beginning of the film, I wasn't necessarily feeling like he was properly cast. I do definitely think Michael Cera, I've seen Superbad, and he's been in other high school comedy movies that I haven't exactly seen, but I know this is sort of his forte, just playing those sort of in a way quirky in this movie he's plays a 22-year-old, but it's just a youthful, quirky person, a bit geeky here and there, and a bit square. But the thing is, though, in this universe, Scott Pilgrim apparently is sort of a womanizer in a way. He's had all these previous girlfriends, and so I was thinking does Michael Cera really fit that role? But again, over the throughout the course of the film, I really felt like he was nailing that role. So it sort of started from like not necessarily thinking he was the right pick to later on I thought he was a perfect pick. And once you fully finish the film, you realize that the cast, like each and every single cast member, was just accurately chosen. I've seen in like Michael Cera's and also Chris Evans' like GQ interviews, when they were just speaking about this film, they talked about just the connection that each cast member had to one another and to the project itself. Like apparently they still have an ongoing email thread. So I think that just indicates how impacted they felt by this film, and sort of, I guess, the impact they had on us as an audience. So that's really cool. Of course, other standout performances, Kieran Culkin. By the time I'm recording this video, he's won an Oscar, like, I think at the beginning of this year for a film called Real Pain. So it's cool that, he's still popping off. I believe like 15 years now later down the line. But yeah, Kieran Culkin as Wallace steals nearly every scene with sharp, deadpan delivery, which again is also his forte. And yeah, there are also memorable supporting roles from Chris Evans and Brandon Routh. Routh or Ruth, I'm not too particularly sure. But both of them, and amongst the other actors that play the exes, they are brilliant as playing these exaggerated, egotistical exes. So they do a fantastic job. The live band performances are probably my favorite part of the film. I love, like, my favorite scene would probably be the, I forget the band's name, but Brie Larson's character is like the lead singer for it. That was genuinely like one of the best scenes. I absolutely loved it. They are so immersive, well integrated into the story too. And yeah, I mean, character-wise, Scott Pilgrim is very much a flawed, far from perfect character. And he is also somewhat unlikable. And so I think that could also be like, it wasn't really like a huge hit or miss for me, because I actually really like, and I mentioned this in other reviews, I like, morally ambiguous characters. Of course, this film is not as deep as like some other film like The Handmaiden or anything, but I like flawed characters. But yeah, Scott Pilgrim, he's a hard guy to root for, especially in a film that has a short runtime and is adapted from a huger graphic novel series where you really get to learn about the character. But yeah, I mean, Scott Pilgrim can sometimes be really unlikable. He becomes very punchable at certain points. But I mean, if it's true to the comics that it's being adapted from, then I guess you can't really complain. Yeah, I mean, if it aligned with his character arc from the books, then yeah. But one thing I did feel really that I felt like was a huge flaw of this film, at least for me, was Knives Chow's arc. Knives Chow is the 17-year-old girlfriend that Scott Pilgrim is dating at the beginning of the film, and she's also the girl that he tries to break up with in order to pursue Ramona Flowers. And she's this very sweet girl. I feel like they were trying to paint her as this very obsessive red flag girl, but she was genuinely like one of the most sweetest characters in this entire film. And so I really feel like she was sort of done dirty towards the end. The ending sort of left me feeling a bit disappointed, and wishing for a more stronger resolution. Because in the end, he basically just pursues Ramona and sort of leaves her in the dust in a way. Like, they say their goodbye and their farewells, but it doesn't really feel poignant or have that like resolutionary touch that you would imagine. If that's even a word, resolving, I guess. But yeah, I mean, overall, that's basically it. I also do think the character of Ramona Flowers is sometimes a bit underdeveloped. She sort of remains this enigmatic figure throughout, but I mean, yeah, not too much of a huge issue. But yeah, overall, I think Scott Pilgrim versus the World is a sensory overload in the best way. It is fun, it is fast-paced, it is endlessly rewatchable, in my opinion. And, of course, even with some minor character issues here and there that I had, I do think that the film stands as one of Edgar Wright's most distinctive and memorable films, and I think it also stands as one of the 2010s most memorable films as well. I do think this is like a defining film of the 21st century, which is, of course, another reason why I really wanted to see this film. So I highly recommend to see Scott Pilgrim, especially for fans of stylized filmmaking and comic and video game culture. This, of course, is a film that will really appeal to the youth. But in actuality, I think the comics are a lot more maturely themed, from what I've slightly read here and there. But yeah, I mean, still incredible film that I really liked watching. I'm going to give Scott Pilgrim versus the World an 8 out of 10. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed. See ya.